Welcome to Off the Beaten Paths, Breakfast in the Books, and our July 1st, 2012 conversation with Chris Cleave, author of Gold, Little Bee, and Incendiary, published by Simon & Schuster. Chris's newest book, Gold, is the story of five people, Jack and Kate, their daughter Sophie, Kate's best friend Zoe, and Tom, Kate and Zoe's coach. Jack, Kate, and Zoe are sprint bicycle racing champions preparing for the 2012 Olympics. Kate and Zoe are fierce competitors and best friends. Only one of them can win gold. Sophie, who is 9, is undergoing chemotherapy for leukemia. The book reads just like a sprint bicycle race, strategic and cunning till the last lap, then a sprint to the finish. We talked to Chris about what motivated this book. If you like this interview, please think of buying Gold from steamboatbooks.com. That's steamboatbooks.com. If you do, you'll be supporting more of these kinds of interviews.
Chris,
Hey, hello.
how are you? I'm over
fine.
in the corner here. You can't see me yet, but I'll move the camera in just a second.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Is that
This-
you, Ron, speaking? I can't see you.
It is me. Yes, here I am.
Oh,
here
hi.
I am.
Hi, Ron. Hello, everyone. How you all doing?
It's good to see. I'm going to move the camera around for a minute so that you can see everybody in the floor of the bookstore here. Just give me a second here while I do some panning so you can see all the people here. I'm going to pan in so you can see.
Hi. How you doing?
Go. Whoops.
Hey,
I'm not a very good photographer, Chris. This is
This is a great job. This is very pro. Yeah.
oh, thank you.
This is great.
Yeah.
Oh, is everyone having breakfast?
Yeah, I know we would love to
appetit, everyone.
to share, but but we can't figure out how to do that in Skype yet. We can't.
No, that's great. I've just had supper with my kids, so I'm
Good.
I'm way ahead of you guys.
Yeah. What's the weather like in London?
Showery. We have two kinds of weather in the summer. We have constant rain and sporadic rain, and we've had the latter today. It's been okay. We managed to get out into the park and have a good day with the kids. So yeah, it was great.
Did you
Thanks.
go riding today?
I did, yeah. I did 3 hours this morning. I
Wow.
managed to catch a dry patch, and yeah, it was great. What's it like over there?
Unfortunately, it's hot and dry. Um, we actually today were supposed to be competing with a cattle drive that is part of the annual 4th of July festivities in Steamboat, and it goes down the main street of our town. But it's been so hot and dry that they had to cancel it today. So we didn't have that competition at least.
Well, I'd like to say thanks very much to all of you for being there. Then that's great.
So I just told the group a little bit about Gold. So they have an introduction to it. And but have you always ridden a bicycle?
Yeah, I've always ridden recreationally, but it wasn't until I researched gold that I started riding seriously. I wanted to know what it felt like to race, which is something that I'd never done before. And it was a very different experience for me, to go flat out for hours at a time. I wanted to know what that felt like so that I could write the race scenes in the book with, some kind of authenticity.
So what did you discover about the experience of riding hard, fast?
I discovered that I liked winning, which was
Really?
yeah. I didn't know that I had a competitive streak, and I was very surprised to discover that I did. I also discovered that I hate losing, which is a different thing entirely. winning is just really good fun, and you can stop after the finish line and shake everyone's hand and do a few high fives, and you feel very happy for everyone else. And losing just just makes you want to cry, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know, you've lost, and there's nothing you can do except go home, train harder, you know, wait for the next race, which might be in a week's time or 2 weeks, and try again. As a novelist, you don't get to experience winning and losing. You know, it was a really different side of my personality, I think, that came out. I mean, one of the great things about being a writer is that no one else has to lose in order for you to write your book. You know, it's not competitive at all. So I had to learn what competition felt like, because I wanted the race scenes to be really true. You know? I wanted the emotions that Zoe and Kate feel to really come out strongly on the page. I wanted I wanted the reader to feel what that's like. I want your own heart rate to accelerate when you read those passages. And the only way I was going to make that honest and make that true was to, you know, put myself through a racing program myself.
Why bicycle racing?
Because it's just so beautiful. I auditioned several sports. I knew I wanted to write about Olympic athletes. I first of all thought I was going to write about rowing. Now, rowing is an amazing sport because the people who do it are super strong, and I really admire them. But the tactics of rowing aren't very interesting to write about. Um, Basically, rowing, you need to get yourself to the start line slightly before the time at which the race is going to start. You all need to be in the boat, pointing the way, and you need to row really, really, really hard until someone crosses the finish line. That's the tactics. Whereas,
Chris, you talked to the wrong people. You're talking to a coxswain right now.
Oh no.
And
I didn't know. I'm sorry.
And one who rode at Henley yet. So you just didn't talk to the people who do all the tactical stuff and do the thinking and.
If there's one person in the boat who is thinking hard, it is the cox.
If there's one person, I like that.
I'll rephrase that. I'm sorry. There is someone in the boat who's thinking really hard, and it's the cox. It's true. I watch the Oxford and Cambridge race every year, the Thames. And it's true, actually, the tactics of that are subtle and fascinating. And Henley is the same because it's a curved course, isn't it? And you have
Henley is straight, but a couple of the other courses are curved, and those they're rare now in international racing. Most of the rowing is straight courses, lots of boats. But in the old days, we used to do a lot more curved racing, and now I'm dating myself. And yeah, the tactics were fascinating then.
Yeah. So you have different currents on different banks, and
yes,
you've got wind and the conditions of the waves and stuff. Yeah. So okay, I'll admit it's a very
So your next book
the next book will be a rowing epic.
Right. Let's see how far we can row. But why did you want to write about Olympic athletes?
There's a question at the heart of the book, and the question is, what's most important in your life, ambition, or the love that you have for your friends and your family? I think it's an important question. I think it's one that we all face every day. Whenever we're juggling work and family, You know, whenever we're wondering whether to say yes to our boss or yes to the people who need us back home. You know, these are difficult choices, and there's a question in all of my books. And I thought if I wanted to answer this question, which is most important, ambition or love, um, I should go and look at the most ambitious people on earth. And the most ambitious people I've ever met are Olympic athletes. And something that I alluded to before is that, you know, in my day job, it's not competitive. You know, there's room for a lot of people to write books. I can see on the shelves behind you guys there, you know, the documentary proof that there's room for many authors. But there's only room for one person on the Olympic podium. And that's what I found extraordinary and extreme about the Olympics. It's the most extreme form of human ambition. That's why I wanted to write about it, number one. And number two, because it's coming to my town. You know?
Yeah.
It's the greatest show on earth, and it's going to take place 500 meters from where I live. So
Wow.
I thought, as an artist, I should respond to that. I've always been the kind of writer, I hope, that's writing about the times he lives in. And it seemed a real shame to miss that. You know, my whole city's been gearing up to it for 6 years now, and I felt that I should gear up to it too. I really wanted to tell what I believe is the backstory to the Olympics. Something that you realize as a writer is that for every great story, there's an even greater backstory. You know, there are these depths of human experience that are fun to talk about. I always think that the Olympics is a human drama like any other, and when we watch on our screens, for example, the final of the 100 meters sprint, what we're witnessing there is the last 10 seconds of the last act of an enormous human drama. And what I'm interested in as a novelist is the 3 years and 364 days and 23 hours and 59 minutes and 50.1 seconds that come before that. And I think it's a big story to tell.
I don't want to compliment you too much, but Gold succeeds in doing that brilliantly. It's you develop a relationship that is so unique, and kind of gets at this fascinating question, because these athletes aren't meeting each other for the first time when they get to the Olympics, and okay, many of them won't have the same kind of relationship that Kate and Zoe do, but they know each other. You know, the swimmers have raced each other in the pool. The sprinters have been on the starting line together, and you really get at that in that relationship between Kate and Zoe.
Thanks. Yeah, they're I read a great word the other day which I wasn't familiar with until then, which is frenemies. Have you guys heard that word?
No.
Yeah, frenemies.
Oh, frenemies.
That's kind of what they are. They're friends and they're enemies. And I became really interested in that relationship. It's, you know, the relationship of rivals is super interesting. When you look at rivalry, it's a really weird form of human friendship, actually. It's the kind of friendship. I mean, okay, friendship is when someone calls you. You know, friendship is when someone cares. Friendship is when, you know, someone drops you an email when they know that you're down. And what's important is that they care. They acknowledge that you exist in the world, and it's a beautiful thing. Actually, a rivalry is really close to that. You know, a rivalry is between two people who are not ignoring each other, and who are absolutely fascinated by the other person's life, and albeit for more negative reasons, it's still an amazing bond that two rivals form, and sometimes it can make them both be greater than they would have been on their own. I think about the great sporting rivalries of history. Every great athlete needs a great competitor um, to rise up to. It's like Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe.
Yep.
Or it's like
Yep.
or to give a really dark example, do you guys remember Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan?
Yeah.
That how about that for a rival? And that
Yeah.
that changed the lives of both women. And they're both actually much more famous, I guess. I don't know whether fame is a good thing, but they're certainly much more famous because of their relationship than they would have been alone. And with Kate and Zoe in the book, I was very interested in this destructive force, this rivalry, that nevertheless makes these people very, very close to each other. It means that at the end of their sporting careers, they will know each other better than anyone else knows them. And if the fragile friendship that they form can survive the rivalry, well, they might end up as very great friends. And that's what fascinated me in the book. To say, after all the competition is done, after all the sound and the chaos and the fury has abated, can they be friends? Can two great rivals come to love one another?
There is a scene in the book. I hope I remember this right, Chris. Correct me if I get it terribly wrong. Otherwise, give me a break. Where Zoe and Kate have done a training race, and they finish this race, which is very cleverly run, and nobody's sure who actually wins. And you write the scene of them in the locker room after the race, so that here they've been in an intense competition, trying to beat each other, and in that scene, Zoe is brushing out Kate's hair.
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of contrast that is just fascinating.
Yeah, thanks. What I tried to do is to give these athletes back a certain measure of humanity. Because when we see them on the screen, the only thing we see them do is competing with each other. Right? We see the race. We don't see all of the time that they're training together and talking with each other and sitting, as you say, in locker rooms, getting ready to race each other. Because as well as being top level athletes, they're also human beings, and they do the same kinds of things that human beings do. They look after each other, they like each other, they betray each other, they have mutual friends, they have the same equipment sponsors, they have to go to the same gala dinners to meet the demands of their local sporting federations. They see each other in real life all the time, and they have a relationship. And I think that we risk missing that in the lives of competitors. I'm really interested by the stuff they do when they're not on the track, and because when they are, I mean, these athletes, especially the track cyclists I'm talking about, they wear these one-piece lycra outfits, in superhero colors, with these amazing sort of aerodynamic helmets with mirrored visors, and they really do look like superheroes. They look like Captain America or Catwoman. They look extraordinary, and they're totally dehumanized. And what fascinated me when I talked with a lot of athletes and I went through the training and I I did all of this stuff, and I realized that, look, as well as being extraordinary people, they're also very ordinary people, you know. And when they get sad and hurt and lonely, they're sad and hurt and lonely, just like you and me. And what makes it harder for them to deal with is because everyone thinks they're superheroes, you know, wearing their underpants outside their trousers.
Yeah, yeah.
But they don't. You know, when they get cut, they bleed just like we do.
So, why Sophie?
So Sophie in the book is the daughter of two very high-level athletes. So Jack and Kate in the book are top-level Olympian competitors, and they have a daughter, and their daughter is called Zoe. And two things happen with Zoe. The first,
With Sophie, right?
thank you very much. Sorry, I misspoke. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, two things happen with Sophie. The first thing is that she's born. Are we zooming in? Hi, everyone.
Yes, yes.
Can you guys see what I'm seeing? I, you have an inset shot, right? I'm now seeing a zooming and panning shot. Table 2. Hello.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't mean to distract you. I just thought I'd give you some variety.
I haven't seen you guys before. It's nice to see you. Hi. This is great. This is the first time I've done anything like this.
So
It's really good. This is the most high-tech book club I've ever done. But thank you very much for letting me be part of this. This is great. I was talking about Sophie. Yeah, Sophie's born, and then like any parents, they have to decide, okay, what comes first now, the career or the child? And then the second thing happens to Sophie, which is that she gets very sick. She gets diagnosed with an illness called leukemia, which is a form of blood cancer. And when she becomes very, very sick, the demands for her care become very, very great. And it becomes an acute question of what comes first, the care of this child or the sporting ambitions of the parent. The reason I did this was because it seemed to me more and more that when we talk about sport and when we talk about high-level athletes, we celebrate their lives because they are a celebration of health and vitality. When we look at the Olympic motto, which is swifter, higher, stronger, that's a celebration of everything that's better than death and dissolution and entropy. It's a celebration in each new generation of the fact that it's worth being, you know, faster and better. Well, the antithesis of that is illness, is ill health. And something that I like to do in my books is to bring these two opposites together into a reasonably plausible scenario. To say, well, what if these people who are very fit have a daughter who's very sick? It's a very simple setup. That's the premise of the book. Because I think if you put ill health and great health next to each other, we can see the consequences of both more clearly. And that's why Sophie's in the book. She's this very sick child suffering from an illness that's very serious, but for which the prognosis is actually pretty good. You know, more than 90% of the children who are diagnosed with the form of leukemia that she has will go into full remission. Nevertheless, it's a very serious pass that she has come to. And I wanted to explore the fact that Sophie in the book is fighting a battle that is even harder and even more significant than that which her parents are fighting. I think it puts into perspective even these most ambitious athletes on earth. And when you look at the fight that Sophie is fighting, it really does make the struggles of the adults in the book look less significant. You know, it makes you think, well, why are they running around for a simple piece of gold metal? You know, because there's actually a a greater goal, if you like, being fought for at the heart of the story.
You didn't just write that part of the story, though. You also, in a fascinating way, get inside Sophie's head, and you write you write not just about the challenge of her illness, but the challenge she feels to manage the rest of the lives around her.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Delighted to. I researched the illness a lot. I spent a long time in a hospital in London, Great Ormond Street Hospital for sick children, and they gave me an amazing degree of access. So I was allowed to be in the room with doctors while they were giving the diagnoses to parents and children. And I also got to follow up on the kids. I got to see them in various stages of chemotherapy. I got to see a lot of kids getting better, which was fantastic. It was an amazing thing to see. I also got to see some kids who were very sick, and it was a very difficult thing to see. I interviewed a lot of the doctors, a lot of the nurses, but most of all, I interviewed a lot of the kids. And the way I would conduct the interviews is I would be in the room with one or both of the parents present, and I would just ask these very gentle and open-ended questions, because I don't want to push these sick children any harder than their life already is. So I would just say, tell me how you feel. Tell me how things are. Tell me what do you think is going to happen now. And the more I talked with these children, the more I realized that they were having two conversations with me, right? One was with me, the interviewer, and another one was for the benefit of their parents who were in the room. And very often they weren't really answering my question. They were just providing confidence and projecting courage to their parents. And you could see from their parents' looks that their parents really needed that. They really needed their kids to say, yep, things are good, I'm getting better, this is fine, I don't worry, I'm not scared. And I understood that the children in those situations were managing their parents, even as the parents imagined that the converse was happening. And I hugely admired the kids for that. I think children in those situations are a lot more emotionally able than we often give them credit for. And they're doing a lot more than we think they can. And these were kids of 6, 8, 10 years old, showing a high degree of care for their own parents, and really trying to make sure that mum and dad didn't worry. I find that very touching, and that really informed the character of Sophie in the book, who spent a lot of her time projecting confidence to her parents, and also trying to hide the extent to which she is sick. And talking with some of the nurses at the hospital, I understood that this is actually quite a common thing, that the nurses will see the full extent of a child's symptoms. This is, while a child is in residential care in the hospital, whereas a child choose not to show everything to their parents. And that blew me away. I didn't know that happened.
You give Sophie one tool that she uses, I'm going to do the terrible thing, talk about that. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Is this Zoe's Star Wars obsession?
Yeah. Yes.
So Zoe, like me, grows up completely obsessed with Star Wars, and although she can't talk with her parents about how worried she is, She can actually talk to Han Solo and Chewbacca and Obi-Wan Kenobi, become her confidants, really. So whenever she's really worried, those are the guys she's talking with about it. And I found these scenes quite touching because it's what I used to do as a kid.
I wondered if it was in some way autobiographical.
And, uh,
It's very neat and it's fascinating and it feels very real. So
yeah,
in the book.
I had a friend, a guy called Adrian. I was very jealous of Adrian because he had the full-scale model of the Millennium Falcon, and I used to go around to his house uh, on any pretext, really. the, the idea was that he was my friend, but really, I just really liked his Millennium Falcon.
The truth comes out.
I can him now. Actually, he probably still doesn't know that.
We won't tell.
This is going to be broadcast. I should go and put in a call to him now, right before he.
Right.
He loved you for your Millennium Falcon.
Go ahead.
I had.
Hey, Chris. So my daughter and I are looking forward to reading this book very much.
Thanks.
Very excited. In fact, Skelly's so excited she's already read half of it while the first author was on. So I just wanted to ask you a question. We're both cycling enthusiasts. It sounds like you, at least for me, have got into the sport quite late in life. I'm curious as to why you picked the female sports person rather than the male, because you mentioned earlier on about the relationships between protagonists can be a positive thing or a negative thing and so on. It strikes me, having coached my kids, that girls behave very differently in their competition than guys, and you did give the extreme example of the skaters, which appears to be more testosterone driven than most male competitiveness. But anyway, so I think I've lost you.
No, that's a great question. Thanks. Yeah, I thought long and hard about who the two rivals should be, and I ended up deciding that what female athletes are doing is really interesting, and that they're actually doing more than male athletes are doing in that situation, for several reasons. The first is that exactly the age at which female athletes are getting super strong and reaching the pinnacle of their sport, they're also being asked this question by society, which is, are you going to get married and settle down and have kids? Right? And this is happening in their, I don't know, mid-20s to early 30s, for example. And it's a twist to the story that male athletes don't have to deal with. Recently, for example, one of my heroes in cycling, Mark Cavendish, and his partner had a child. And for her, that was a major life event because she had to be pregnant and take time off work. And Mark Cavendish didn't miss a single week's training. He missed one race to be there when the kid was born, and then he was back racing a week later. Now, I'm not passing judgment on their relationship or how they manage their life, but I am saying it's very typical of the difference between male and female athletes. When I look at another of my heroes, Paula Radcliffe, when she decided to have a child, for people who don't know Paula Radcliffe, she's a terrific marathon runner, the best female marathon runner Britain's ever produced. And when she decided to have a child, it was a really huge deal, and it really changed her career. For a start, she had to take a long time out of her career, during which her rivals won everything. A problem that guys don't have. And so, because there's a child at the heart of my story, because I'm asking this question in the novel, which is most important, ambition or love, it was super interesting to ask that question of female athletes. And secondly, like going to your point, which I completely agree with, that there's a difference in the way that male and female athletes compete. I think there's a real double standard in what we expect of our athletes, and this is something I noticed a lot. I mean, I watched hundreds of interviews, the kind of finish line interviews with athletes, with men and women. And I noticed that female athletes are still expected to say things like, "Oh yes, I beat Tanya today, but I'm sure she'll beat me tomorrow, and and we're great friends." And that's sort of the expected discourse for a female athlete. Whereas men, it's considered normal for them on their finish line interview to say, "Yeah, I basically ripped Roger's head off today, and that was terrific, and I'll probably do it again tomorrow." You know, which is much less. It's brutal, and much less sophisticated. I felt that. I think because women's sport is still so, I think, unfairly underrepresented. There is a lot more of a "we're all in this together" feeling amongst the female athletes, and you notice them supporting each other more, which again I think makes them more interesting people to write about. So is that?
Yeah,
I've got one other quick question as well. So I guess looking at the Tour de France right now, we're seeing the Brits have got possibly the chance of winning their first ever tour.
Hold it just a little further away.
Sorry, can you hear me now, Chris?
Great, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, so with Wiggins and Cavendish.
Okay, go ahead now.
Sorry, we're breaking up here. So Wiggins and Cavendish on the road together, Wiggins possibly getting the chance to win the Grand Tour. My obsession with cycling is just a few years old now, and I must admit I don't know much about track cycling, but it does seem with some of the rivalries and some of the tradition and the history and the stories that take part in these Grand Tours, there may be a great opportunity to write a novel about a Tour de France or a Giro d'Italia or something similar. Have you got any plans for that?
It's a great question. I would absolutely love to. If my publishers would let me write another cycling novel, I'd love to. I completely agree with you. The history, the legends of the Giro or the Tour are just extraordinary. And some of the great rivalries on the Tour have been amazing. No, I agree. This tour is really exciting. Really exciting. We've got some amazing characters in it. There's a few Americans who could win this tour as well. We can never write off people like Chris Horner or Levi Leipheimer or whatever. I mean, they're certainly like podium candidates. I think the greatest tour competitor there's ever been is actually George Hincapie, an American, a New Yorker. He's competing in his 17th tour this year, and just imagine the stories he's got to tell. It's always a shame when someone as amazing as that retires, but I hope it's an opportunity for him to write his memoirs, which I reckon would be probably a lot better than any fiction I could write about it, because a lot of the stories in cycling you just couldn't make them up. Amazing rivalry.
Well, and not just cycling. I've been sitting here just amazed at how true life parallels fiction, because one of our very own homegrown Nordic combined Olympians overcame leukemia when he was a toddler. He was very, very ill, and he grew up to become an Olympian. So just obviously a little different from your story, but I've just been struck by what his family went through and who he is now. It's extraordinary. And
skier.
Can you, pardon?
Is he a skier?
Yeah, Nordic combined is talk about a sport that really could grab the imagination. They fly through the air, ski jumping, then they do a grueling cross-country race, and the skills are really quite different, and they put them together and call it Nordic combined.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, we excel at that here in Ski Town, USA. But actually, Chris, I had a great pleasure of hearing you at Literary Sojourn a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And yeah, you were wonderful. And I wonder if you could share with the group the origins of Little B. I think was from your youth, and you noticed a building as you were driving by, and a little bit about that, and also the circumstances surrounding the publication date of Incendiary. I thought those two stories were remarkable.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. But first of all, I'd just like to say how much I enjoyed Literary Sojourn. It was one of the best literary festivals I've ever been lucky enough to join in with.
The feeling is mutual.
There were, 500 people there, warm, happy, good-humoured audience. It was a really exciting event. I loved Wally Lamb. Wasn't he incredible? That was.
Did you go first? Were you the first speaker?
I can't remember. I think so. Yeah.
I think you didn't even get to eat lunch. Everyone lined up to ask you questions.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost you.
Can you hear?
Yep.
Yeah?
We've got you back.
I thought Wally Lamb was amazing. I thought Dan Shawn was extraordinary. To hear those guys speaking was a real honor. So yeah, I thought it was wonderful actually. It's better than anything I've been to in the UK, for example. Amazing festival. You guys are really lucky. Is it every year or every other year?
Every year.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. Yeah, I talked a little bit about the story behind B. That arose because it was actually something that I did when I was an undergraduate at university. So what we all used to do was take jobs in the holidays to pay the rent and to pay the tuition fees. And one of the jobs I had was as a casual labourer. So I would turn up on a bus at 6 o'clock every morning, and they would just take you to wherever the work was that day. So I did all different kinds of jobs. I worked in the fields, I worked on construction sites, and then one day they took us to a place they told us was a prison, and they said we were going to work in the kitchens of this prison, preparing food and serving food to prisoners. So I did that, quite happy to do it. And we spent the whole morning preparing vegetables and cooking vegetables. And then when it came lunchtime, all of these prisoners came into the food hall and we served them food. And the first thing I noticed was that these prisoners were from every different country on earth. They were from Sierra Leone and Rwanda and Botswana, from the Balkans, some from Jamaica, some from Nigeria, from all over. I was thinking, this is very strange, in a prison just outside Oxford in the UK. And so I started asking these people, well, why are you here? What did you do? What did you do wrong to be in prison here? And they were said, oh, well, we didn't do anything wrong. We're refugees. And I discovered that what this place was not a prison at all. The people who had sent us there had just lied about that. It was an immigration detention centre, and it was Britain's first immigration detention centre. It was a place called Campsfield House. So what they did there was they took people who were refugees and they imprisoned them. And that's actually illegal. These people haven't committed a crime, and they were imprisoned without any release date. And I understood after talking with a lot of them how traumatizing that was, to be locked up like a common criminal, but without even the advantage of having a release date. It's a terribly ignoble thing to do to someone who's committed no crime. So I started thinking, well, maybe there is a bigger story here. And I started to find out as much as I could about refugees, about where they come from, about what happens to them when they arrive in the UK or America or Scandinavia or Europe, and what they can expect when they come to our countries and say, look, our country has become too dangerous to live in. Please, can we live in yours for a while until it's safe to go home? Until I had really by accident visited this place. I didn't know that those people existed, and I didn't know that we locked them up. And that's something I try to do in all of my fiction, is to go into a hidden world, a secret world that we wouldn't usually spend time in, find out about it through research, and then report back. And that's how Little Bee started. Then was your other question about Incendiary?
Yes, and the publication and the circumstances surrounding that timing.
Yeah. Well, that was a very strange story, very very odd. I mean, I write novels in this space, which is a contemporary space. So I write about things that are happening now, and I set it in the real world that we all live in. And Incendiary was a story about terrorism, and I wrote it after the 9/11 attacks on the United States. And my question was, what would it be like if there was a 9/11 type attack on London? And so I wrote about a terrorist attack on London from the point of view of a mother who is bereaved in that attack. And it's a love story, really. It's a story about the love that a mother has for her child. And it was written as an open letter to Osama bin Laden, trying to convince him that what he had done was wrong. That's the point of the book. And so far, so normal, except that it was published on the 7th of July 2005, which was also the date of the Al-Qaeda inspired bomb attacks on central London. So what that meant was that the timing of the book had coincided too closely with a real life event, and so the book was taken off sale. It was put onto the shelves at 9 o'clock in the morning, and it was taken off the shelves at 11:30 in the morning on the same day. And that was my first novel, Incendiary. It's sort of hey, I can't hear you guys. Is it?
Can you hear me?
We're not talking. That's why we're all stuck on that. I'm going to turn to Kim. Kim, you should stand up because I can't get over the flowers, so that
All right.
I can get you. Yeah, thanks.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Thanks.
Can you hear me okay? I can't hear me.
Ask him again.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Can you guys hear me?
Excuse me, I'm a little giddy. I'm a big fan, and I've got a couple of questions. One is all of your books, and I love them all. You write women so well, and I'm just so curious about the inspiration or the women in your life that have inspired you to write women the way you do.
Oh, well, I started writing. Oh, thanks, by the way. Great question, and thanks for reading the books. I've always never wanted to write about myself. I think that there's a certain genre of guys writing about their own lives, introspecting, digging back through history, full of our own regrets, wondering what we could have done differently. And I've never wanted to be that guy. I've always wanted to write stories about other people, to get outside my own life, to look outwards and find these people living completely different lives and to report back. So what I did, I made a rule for myself that I would never write about me, so that every time I picked up the pen, I would cross a boundary of gender or of ethnicity or of sexuality or of nationality, to make sure I wasn't writing about me. So I started writing these female characters, and that forced me to observe really closely. So now when I do interviews with people, and when I'm doing research, or when I'm just listening to people, I really force myself to just listen really carefully, to listen to speech patterns, to listen to what people don't say as well as what they do, to try to understand what's going on in people's whole lives and not just in the words they're using. And it was a really cool experience. It forced, just by deciding to not be me and to write from the points of view of these different people, women or characters from Africa or whatever. It forced me to listen and to observe more closely, and I think my writing improved because of it. And ever since then, I've kept that as a rule for myself, that I always try to be someone different, and I try to observe, and I try to not to understand, because I wouldn't say that I understood people, but just to capture the way they speak and the things they do as accurately as I can. And I think when I write female characters, that's the point of view I'm coming from. Just being I hope, a good observer.
Well, you do a fabulous job. I love your female characters. And my second quick question was, I just noticed that the English women's sprint team is the strong favored for the Olympics. And did you have any idea when you were writing Gold that the English women were going to be such a strong team?
No, I didn't know they would be so good. I think the English have got a good chance. The Australians have got a really good chance too. It turns out, but I'm not very nationalistic. I don't. Again, I hope this isn't going to be on YouTube, but I don't really mind who wins. I just really admire everyone who's made it to the start line. That for me is what's beautiful about the Olympics, is that these people who have tried so hard and have achieved such extraordinary things in their sport can get to that point. Everything else, the last 3 minutes of that enormous psychodrama, I don't even mind who wins. I'm interested in the 4 years before that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I had a question. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. I had a question, but Kim asked it. It was a comment. So it's turning into a comment now that I read Little Bee as well and sobbed my way through it on an airplane while everyone looked at me. And it was just fantastic. And I was honestly surprised to find out that you were a male, because you do write women so brilliantly. And I just was thinking, kind of giggling to myself, thinking, you researched the leukemia kids and you researched the bikers and everything. And you said that you listen to women's speech patterns and are just so intuitive about writing women. I was just wondering what your wife thinks of your the fact that you do the female point of view so well. Does she feel the same way?
She sometimes bursts into my writing room to check that I'm not dressing up funny while I'm. We had a pretty good laugh about it, actually. She's called Clem, and we have we have great conversations about it. We sat down to write a list once about what is the difference between men and women. Yeah, because it's a difficult thing to do. It is actually difficult to write from the point of view of the other gender. It's terrifying, actually. You just think, what if I get this really badly wrong? What if I just haven't understood at all? And so I was trying to confirm a few of the things that I thought I'd observed, and we wrote a list, and we couldn't agree on any of it. I had this list is like, what is the difference between men and women? And I had 2 columns actually on this list. One of them was like things men do, and the other was called things women do. And it turns out that there's all of that stuff is negotiable. Now, for every example you can come up with, you can actually find a really strong counterexample of a man or a woman that's totally not fulfilled their expected gender role. And in fact, the only thing that we could definitely agree on, my wife and I, is men's and women's different attitudes to illness. So we decided that something that's definitely true is that when a woman has a cold, she just has a cold. But when a man has a cold, he has potential virus.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Chris, you there still?
Yeah, still here.
Yeah, you're there. Yeah, you're there. We keep thinking you're gone, but you've been fine. I'm not. Delaney, you have a question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. I was just wondering what sells for you. Like, what makes your books different? What's the most important aspect of writing, do you think?
Oh, most important aspect of writing. For me, it's that I have to care about what I'm writing about. So I've said before that my stuff is always based on a question. So the question at the heart of the first book, Incendiary, was why do governments not do more to protect poor people and victims? The question at the heart of the second book, Little B, was should we step outside our comfort zone in order to help other people into it? How much should we do for people who have nothing? The question at the heart of the third book, Gold, is should we sacrifice our ambition for love? And they're not questions that I go searching for. They're questions that kind of pop up in my life and really start eating me. And I mind about them. With Gold, it came from a question that my eldest kid asked me, and he was 6 years old at the time, and I was about to go off on tour, on a book tour. I packed my bags, and I was all ready to go. And he said, "Dad, why are you going?" And I was like, "Oh, it's my job. This is what I do, and I'm excited about it. I'm going on tour." And he was like, "Yeah, but don't go." So I was like, "Oh, I've sort of got to." He's like, "No, Daddy, don't go because we like it more when you're here." And it killed me. I was about to get out of the door. I was about to get onto a plane. And my ambition is to go on these tours and to tell everyone about my books. And it's what I do, and it's my vocation. I'm a writer, and I can't do anything else. I'm not good at anything else. It's just what I love doing. On the other hand, the person I care most about in the world has just told me not to do it. Right? So this is a really big question. And I think he's come. Have I got one here? Do you see that? It just sneaked in behind me.
Which is probably a sign that maybe our time is up. One other quick question.
Very quickly, just wondered if you could describe what's going on in London now for, as the Olympic countdown is getting closer and closer. Can you describe London?
I definitely will. I'd love to answer. I think I didn't completely finish answering that lady's question about what I write in the books. Sorry, I was distracted by the kids, but I just wanted to say thanks. That was a really good question. And I think what I try to do in the books is to make sure that there's a question at the heart of the books that I genuinely care about, and then I try to answer that question. And I think that if I can do that honestly, and if I can keep caring about the book all the way to the end, then I hope that readers can see. They might not necessarily like the book, but I think it will have a kind of authenticity to it, because I've gone out there, I've cared about the question, and I've researched the subjects of it. And I think that's, I would not claim that my books are great, but I will claim that I like them, and because I believe in the question at the heart of them, and I believe that I've gone out and done my best to find out about the lives of the people who are the subjects.
Thanks.
Thanks.
By the way, the questioner there is one of our bright young writers here in Steamboat.
Oh, great.
When we do poetry slams, she tends to win them. So,
Congratulations. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm honored to talk with you then. My poetry is terrible, and I really admire a poet who can actually write good poetry. Congratulations.
Thanks.
so there was another quick question about London preparations
Yeah,
for the Olympics.
it's very exciting. I mean, the Olympic road race for cycling is going down my street, like actually down my street, so we can hang out of the windows and look at it, which is exciting. I recently visited the Olympic Park, and I'm pleased to report that it's ready. All of the venues are ready. The velodrome looks beautiful. The athletics track is fabulous. The Olympic Village is ready. I think what won't be ready is the transport links. So good luck to anyone who's coming. I think the official advice is that everyone should try to get to all of the venues several hours before the event they want, and there might be a lot of walking involved. But hey, London's a very friendly city, and I think everyone will have an adventure. It's been really exciting. I think it's been really good for London. I think it's about time that we proved we could do something useful.
Well, as one who has spent a fair amount of time in London before I retired from my last occupation, I've always loved the city, and while I won't be able to come back this summer for the Olympics, I certainly will be watching on television, so, as will many of us.
I hope it'll be pretty exciting. I think it'll be great.
Yeah.
I think America's probably going to top the table again, right? And you guys got to be pretty excited about that.
Well, there'll be a lot of, each of us has our own favorite events, so we'll be watching many different things, I'm sure.
Fabulous. Yeah, that's going to be great. I'm excited about it.
Well, we have way exceeded the time I asked of you. I am really appreciative of all that you've shared with us. I hope we've got a crowd here that's now really eager to read Gold and go back and read Incendiary or Little Bee if you haven't read it before. Thank you for spending the time. We really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you very much.
And we'll get you back out to Steamboat again.
I'd love to.
And really out to Steamboat, not just virtually.
Yeah, but I'd love to come back. And I also have to say this has been really fun for me as well. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I've never done anything like this before, and it's been fantastic. Thank you all for your great questions and for reading the books. And I really appreciate it. I'd sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. And I hope you guys have a fantastic Sunday.
Thank you, and you have a good close to yours.
Thank you.
And the Skype thing can work, so now you don't have to leave home to go to those tours.
I'm just going to do it all from here now with a cup of tea.
There you go.
Yeah.
Lovely.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care, Chris.
Right. See you.